Ladies and gentlemen, hi, I'm Garrett French, starting about 1 minute early to see if we can catch any early birds who might be on. I'm excited this week or this month for the webinar. We're going into local link building with blogs. It's a hard way forward. We had to learn our way there, and I'm going to share with you how we did it, and along the way, we'll be sharing some of the things we wouldn't do again. And there is an entire article published about this on the ZipSprout site, and I'll be probably referencing it throughout the presentation. But my next step here is to stop sharing screens, or stop showing you, or start sharing screens rather. There we go. Endless. Okay. So I'm going to go over here, and we're going to start our presentation now. There we go. This is what we're here for, ladies and gentlemen. Local blog engagement for brand visibility and links. Not sure if everybody knows, but I'm also the owner of ZipSprout, which is its own link building agency, or local visibility agency. We don't just build links there, but it's about getting in front of hyperlocal audiences. A lot of it's spun out from Citation Labs with processes we discovered and sort of pioneered on the Citation Labs side. We just rolled it into its own kind of freestanding entity. And so let's dig in. Who is this webinar for? This is for, my thinking kind of first and foremost is for people who manage teams, who have pre-existing teams of link builders, who can do prospecting, qualifying, outreach, and all the steps necessary to kind of make links happen is really who I've kind of made this for. There's probably, you don't have to go as big as I talk about in this webinar. You could go a little smaller and get a few links and not try to get a few hundred, but this is with kind of the thought behind this webinar is this is how you can conceivably scale a local link building program. That's a non-sponsorship local link building program. So here's what we'll be going into today. It's a lot. Sit back, folks. This is a pretty lengthy presentation. There's going to be a lot of concepts that you're familiar with if you've seen any of my other webinars, and I'll kind of mention when that's happening. And I think if you've ever done any link building, none of this will be new or off-putting or unsettling in terms of what the tasks are. But this is what we're doing today. This is what we're going in on. So first, we're going to talk about local publisher realities, the realities of what exists at the local level, what kinds of websites exist at the local level. Something I've never done but always have wanted to is look for what kind of connection can we see between an area's population and then the volume of publishers within that area? Because I think, it seems obvious that there would be a relationship between population and how many websites there are in a given city. I think it probably is, there's, the more people there are, the more likely there are to be more blogs per person, if you will. Just the ratio of blogs is likely to be higher, or publishers is likely to be higher in any given large city circumstance. But that would have to be tested. It's just a hypothesis right now. So here's some of the realities about local publishers. First of all, we think about publishers in two very different ways at Citation Labs and ZipSprout. So first and foremost there's the 1%. These are the ad-supported publishers. These are the publishers that I think a lot of my link building contemporaries are focused on, or the types of publishers they focus on. So maybe in some cases it's more than 1% that are ad supported in a given area or vertical. But I think, you know, overall on the web, it's at least less than it's less than 1% are actually ad supported websites, meaning these are websites with an editorial staff with like demonstrable reach that sell that make a living by selling advertising. And then the other 99%, as we see them, are visibility supported. And these are the important ones from a local blog engagement or blog visibility program. Are these the publishers who publish to get reach, to have visibility? They've bought into content marketing. They're typically businesses, organizations, service businesses, and they publish a blog post once a month or something to put up on Facebook or to put in their newsletter or to generally share with their potential audience as a means of demonstrating their capabilities. And so this is really more of the type of publisher that we're focused on. I've never been good at or strong at developing link campaigns or programs around that. The ad supported, the classic editor at a news publication or niche trade pub kind of a pitch. It's not what I've ever been able to crack, and so we've always kind of gone where there's more volume of opportunity. And at the local level, these are the visibility supported publishers, meaning they're not getting paid each time they publish. They're just hopeful that they get business every time they publish, kind of like me. So here's another kind of key reality at the local level that we see. So if you're trying to batch publishers at the local level by topic, you'll find that they're what we call an inch deep, meaning there just aren't a ton on any given topic. And then the array of potential topics is a mile wide. So there's a real lack of quantity of narrow topic publishers in any given city. I don't know why. I love speculating, and I could. Well, I mean, on a good day or a regular day. Today's a good day, but just anyways, this is though a key and very important fact or reality that we've noticed at that local level, which is basically what you want may not be supported by enough volume of publisher to justify a campaign or to even start doing any kind of link building work. So this is really just a way of saying, how can we make what exists function for so that we can reach a goal? How do we need to adjust our goals to better match what actually exists? And I tell people this on any kind of mode or method of link building is there's what you want and what actually exists on the web may quite possibly differ, especially if you're just kind of getting started. You may not have a working understanding of existing publishers or potentially existing publishers even. So the whole practice for us of local blog engagement for links has been this learning curve of what's actually here and how do we adapt our methods to appeal to that particular type of publisher. It's kind of marketing 101, guys. I mean, this isn't, I don't think I'm blowing anyone's minds here, but just a reminder, you've got to see what's there first before you make any promises to clients or stakeholders or what have you. So just in case people are wanting to clock out early, it's fine. You can watch we'll put a video link in our link to the video in our newsletter, and I'll also be sure to add this video to the article if you have the URL of the article. So we look to batch these publisher types by audience they serve. So for example, the fitness related, so a yoga studio, a local gym, maybe a Pilates, if there's a handful of those. You kind of put all the fitness stuff, fitness buff stuff into one kind of list that you hope will support, whatever objectives you have for that particular campaign. Then this is the magic part, and we get a lot more into this, but this second point here, you're pitching the title to these publishers now. Hey, can we write you an article? Now you've got to fit their audience. And I didn't even, one of the other, this is a Venn diagram with lots of circles here, but you've got to fit their audience, fit their business objectives. Like, why are they're not going to link out to competitors. So, you can't, that's a non-starter. So you're lining up with their audience, lining up with what their perceived business goals are for publishing, their visibility kind of purpose. Then you're looking for a city-specific element to the title, right? To make it click or connect with the publisher. It doesn't have to be there, but usually helps. And certainly it certainly helps when you have that your on page, or as I say on the slide, client-facing citable element is more than likely going to be something pertaining to local, and so that you're really best taking care of yourself if you've kind of connected all these dots, or to the best of your ability solved all these problems beforehand. And this is just purely with title ideation, you guys, like making up titles. What can we write about? What would be a good topic? So you're kind of holding every topic up in front of each one of these, I guess, kind of stakeholders or what have you, and trying to come up with one that your publishers will publish and kind of solves all of these other problems. It's possible. It's fun. This is the kind of one of the fun parts of, to me, of any kind of campaign, is figuring out what do we make that fits and kind of can solve all of these varying constraints. Okay, so let's see, what have we covered so far? I'm going to refresh my own brain, because we're about to get into looking for blogs, and this is kind of a fun part. And before I get too caught up, I want to go back over what we've already talked through. So we've looked at, kind of expectations, publisher realities, what it's, you got the ad supported, a little bit of ad supported, and these are usually news sites. They got great reach, they're tantalizing and tempting, but you basically have to go to them with the same level of work as you'd go to try to get a placement in CNN. Or maybe not quite that same level, but you've got to go big for that type of a publisher. And you're not going to be building links to your target landing pages either. I mean, unless you're super crafty, you've solved that. It's not impossible. It's doable. But there also aren't a ton. There's never a ton of local publishers. I say that, but I think Los Angeles probably has a good handful. But generally speaking, mid-sized cities, you're not going to find a ton. Most are visibility supported, and this is important because when you're pitching them, you have to understand that they are publishing to attract business, right? And so you need to make sure that your titles are going to make the publisher feel comfortable that this, or sense that this could actually attract business for me, or this could help sway someone to use my services, or to start going to the gym or whatever. Inch deep, mile wide. This is just a reality of local. We started, trying to do links and resource page link building at the local level, and this was even more painful there. There just aren't enough of any single topic publishers. Typically, not. I say that, and I'm sure we could prove that wrong. But generally speaking, you're having to look for multiple topic types or audiences at that local level that you're trying to get in front of. And the array of topics is generally pretty wide. So yeah, the core is how do we make what exists? How do we first find what exists? And we're just about to get into that. I just started a recap before. How do we identify what exists, and then how do we make what exists actually work with our goals, the link building or visibility goals we might have. So again, we look at batching audiences or like kind of interests within a city, like fitness, and kind of brainstorming groups or business types that would serve that kind of goal, and then creating titles that solve a lot of different kinds of problems. Okay, now this stuff. So how do you find what exists? How do you find the local blogs that actually exist? Why this is fun for me is that you're almost always unsure of what's going to be there. There's, often there's fitness related stuff. Okay, yeah, most cities have gyms, and it makes sense for a gym to do some content marketing. Many of them have bought into the blogging concept, and so it's just kind of happened. Now, as a side note, there is, I think I don't. So Garrett believes there could be a decline in blogs for marketing, and so therefore this approach may not have like 5-year, 10-year viability to it. Just saying. Anyhow, this is what you're first assembling to kind of peek into the at the local level. What are the publishers that exist? And we're looking for what are these organizations, who are their audiences, and we're trying to also kind of gauge our ability to tap in or to get past a gatekeeper, an editorial gatekeeper. For example, we've had terrible luck getting onto veterinarian blogs at the local level. It has just not happened well for us. I think there's a lot of factors, but one of the key factors is that they're very selective about what they publish. These are doctors. These are doctors. So therefore they're not just going to publish anything. Another place where we've had a lot, we were very hopeful but had a terrible time getting links, was on local unions websites. So trade unions, the local plumbers unions, etc. Oftentimes they had to bring a submitted document, a submitted article to their board for a discussion before they could decide to publish or not. So if you're waiting a month to get a board review of an article that you submitted, well, first of all, we never got a yes. And then second of all, it was just painful. Now, maybe if we learned that space or knew that space better, we don't. Or if we had connections there, we don't. There could be avenues, but anyhow, the point is there are some places that you just, try, but keep your expectations low. Okay, so this slide is about digging in on an individual location, a single city, and kind of getting a sense for yourself real quick on what actually exists there. So I'm going to use my city. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. And so I'm in Jefferson County. And the city is Louisville, Kentucky. And then there's one neighborhood that's notable or that I'm familiar with is the Highlands of Louisville. It's not really called Highlands of Louisville, but I'm concerned that if we just did Highlands, that might be too ambiguous. So Highlands of Louisville, Kentucky, and then a zip code from Louisville. Now, I'm just going to hop over to Google now and show you guys and just kind of walk through what this process is like for me. So I'm going to stop sharing. And oops, no, I didn't mean to do that actually. I just meant to exit this. Hang in there, folks. I got this. Don't worry. And yeah. Share screen. Awesome. Thanks for being patient, guys. You're the best. So control. I'm going to go over to Google. Now, so I'm going to start with Jefferson County, Kentucky, and then in URL blog. So what am I doing here? From a query perspective, I'm forcing, I only want to see results where the word blog is in the URL. And then I just, it's good. The results also have to relate to Jefferson County, Kentucky. Doesn't mean that Google's only going to find me sites that are from Jefferson County, Kentucky, but it certainly seems like they're selecting in that manner. So first, right up at the top, we've got a couple of great opportunities. All three of these look interesting. So, well, probably not. Okay, so honestly, probably not the schools. Just how, maybe if you did a top tier, like a tier one publisher kind of approach where you've done a big data study of that in that area, maybe the school blog, and it makes the schools look great. You know, maybe the school blog would be open to publishing something. But it's also just cool to know that sometimes the county schools do have blogs. So, and then of course, before you plan anything, you need to go visit the site. So then I see senior healthcare. This is cool. Maybe though, it looks like from the URL string that they might be a nationwide publisher. So just based on because they've got a Kentucky folder and then a city folder, and then so they might have different blogs for every city, and then but kind of cover a bunch of different cities, which would be less, to me, less desirable. I want a publisher that's actually from the city. So this one, Leadership Louisville, looks more interesting. I'm guessing it has to do with growing the city in some way. So if you've got an angle that relates to growing whatever I don't know what they do. I probably should as a Louisvillian, but I don't. So you just have to explore a little bit what their mission is and determine if that's something you could line up with. Now, this is just from Jefferson County. And so kind of what we're looking for here, folks, are what are the types of organizations that we're starting to see? So here's a realtor. That's interesting. Another one. This is a local NPR affiliate. So this is what we're seeing. So some senior care, some .orgs that deal with, I think, growth of the city. I'm guessing growth of the city. Administrative, probably blogs, or blogs about large organizations. And this is the type of publisher where I think it would be a long publish cycle. Just off the top of my head, my gut is that it would take a long time to get on that site. So you really need to have if you really are targeting that type of a publisher, you need to have a very, I don't know, thought through approach to why are they going to be linking to you? So also, so that's Jefferson County. So let's look at just the city name. See what comes back. The travel for the tourism organizations for that city could be pretty solid. Again, more for what I refer to as top tier publisher. But you know, I think if you had a great piece on some of the qualities or great qualities of the city, these folks would be eager to publish it to help promote the quality and visibility of the city. This is more, well, actually, this is interesting. Louisville blogs. I just don't think that that's probably very thorough, but it'd be worth checking out. There's another travel guide. Looks like it's just for the city of Louisville. And there's Leadership Louisville again. The Louisville Apartment Association. Oh, that's interesting. So I did not know that even existed. So that's kind of cool. Don't know what we do with them, but it's in the housing kind of resident space. Kentucky Health Policy Institute. And this is the one like the schools where I think you'd have to really put in some work. I do like to look at past year to get a sense of what's been happening or who's publishing frequently. And so that gives you a better sense of recently updated, another apartment complex, recently updated publishers. Let's go past month. I mean, just see what's there. These guys keep showing up. So they're consistent publishers. What does that tell us? They publish a lot of content. Don't know what their editorial standards are, but they're worth knocking on. It's worth knocking on doors. Local photographers is one we've observed previously. Never really found a productive way forward with photographers, but there's, as far as side hustles go, photography is a relatively low barrier of entry side hustle. And it's also, I think photographers frequently are, website savvy. And so there's just a lot of their sites up. Let's see, a weather blog. I mean, maybe, how do you get in? That's something. How do you get on the weather publishers? Because those are pretty consistent. People writing about the local weather. So if you've got a weather angle, that could be interesting. Drinking liberally. So looks like a lifestyle type blog. Attorneys. There's, probably a disproportionate number of local publishers are service related publishers are probably attorneys. Have had gotten placements that way before, but most attorneys who are publishing blog posts are, in the SEO game, so to speak, and are pretty aware of why we would be trying to get a placement on their site, and often, a little bit suspicious of what we're up to. So this is interesting. The Whole Health Associates. We do see so frequently alternative health type stuff is acupuncture, massage, therapeutic massage are often they have blogs as well. This type of that serve that type of audience. And really, if you back into it and think about what audiences are going to be responding to content marketing, I mean, it is more of that lifestyle or wellness kind of choice where you kind of need some story to it. My power goes out, or I don't know why, I need help fixing some electricity in my house. I'm not trying to read a guide to 5 ways to de-stress or 5 things I know I need to call somebody. And so it's a very different kind of lead moment or content doesn't serve as well the electrician side of things, just for example. Okay, so we could run back through more of these types, but I hope you're getting the gist. Is you're just hunting, you're just looking, and really, for best results, I should have been keeping a notepad and taking notes as I went, because there is a place further on where I'll be talking about adding in, service types or whatever into your queries. But I didn't, and so we'll just have to use our imaginations further on. So let me fire this back up again. So this is, we talked this through. This was the kind of quick dip. Who's publishing locally? Who's there? And it's a way to set your own expectations, set the expectations of your stakeholders, whether it's a client or your boss, around what is actually possible in terms of where we want links built to, and likelihood of getting published. It's sparse, and will require some careful work. You also need to do, once you've selected a direction or a type of organization that you think you want to specialize in approaching, then you're doing what we would call, we're about to dive into deeper prospecting methodologies. But you've got to be asking yourself, how are we going to, or how many links are we trying to build here? How many placements for visibility, if visibility is our goal, are we trying to achieve for this particular campaign? We estimate that you're going to need about 10x. So if you want one placement, you're going to need about 10x the publishers for that if you're doing phone outreach. We have found phone outreach pretty effective at the local level, mostly because it cuts through the inbox, and you can get a faster no or what have you. These are very optimistic estimates too, by the way. So if you're emailing, you need about 25 times the number of ops to get a single placement. And it could, on a bad day or in a bad vertical, it could be way, way worse. So, like I said, with the local labor unions that had blogs, we got 0 placements out of however many we outreached to. We tried a nationwide program to discover all the chambers of commerce with blogs. What we discovered is that they're kind of as a whole managed in very unique ways from city to city, and there's a high variability of how they even would make that kind of assessment. A lot of them are volunteer run, and then they don't get a lot of free content submissions, and then again some of them had to bring them to the board, and then a lot of them just didn't accept outside content. So what I'm getting at is that even if you see a particular publisher type show up frequently in the SERPs, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to get placements there, and that there could be some unforeseen gatekeepers. And so you've got to, it's hard because how do you explain to somebody how many links you're going to be able to get in a given city with that? Because you just don't know until you know how many you get is usually the reality. But this is just a rough guideline. So if you're able to call, you need about 10x the number of prospects, and if you're emailing, at least 25 times the number of placements you want or you're gunning for in a given city. So it's kind of a lot. Depending on whatever the topic area is that you, or the kind of the business service type that you're trying to focus on. So now we're going to go into a deep prospecting, going big. So that's assuming you've selected a service type. So you go back and you just gather the stuff you kind of already gathered. You want all the prominent. The difference is now you want all the prominent neighborhood names plus the city name, and then all of the zip codes from that particular city. Then you're going to be combining that with your service modifiers, the service business modifiers, whatever that is. Then in URL blog, and then I also recommend adding just the word blog. This brings in more noise, but it also brings in stuff where the publisher doesn't call their blog a blog. So there probably are some other variations you could do, but that's what we do right now. I know I've had somebody, I think, recommend like articles or in URL articles. And especially if you're hunting, like kind of hunt and peck and not trying to prospect for everything all at once, like we typically try to do, you can poke around and just see what kinds of stuff comes back when you add articles or publications or that sort of thing. I typically like to go about 20 deep for the past year, sometimes deeper, but as soon as you go past page 2, you're starting to get into like Google making guesses. And they're often good guesses, but they can get a little bit more guessy as you go. And then you would follow the standard stages of link building, which qualify the publishers you found, make sure they're actually local. I really hard ID what they're about. What is this organization or business? Then you do the contact finding, and then finally you can move into outreach. But we did skip a step or skip some conceptual elements, which, okay, citability of your promoted pages. So this is, honestly, the crux of a local campaign. What are we actually building links to? Now I've got some, you don't have to be this elaborate or involved in how you're building links to your local pages. This is how we like to do it. You can also, I'm the next slide, we're gonna, and this is all in the article too, this part here. This really isn't, I didn't get as deep into this in the article. But we're gonna get into like stuff you can do that doesn't necessarily mean you've got to figure out what to add, some specific thing to add to your local page, your local Legion page. But anyhow, this is kind of trying to bring all these pieces together here into a lot of different stuff, really. But the core output is a title that you're pitching to a publisher, right? And the citable element on the page you want links to is crucial here. Without it, you've got no justifiable reason to be linking to the service page that you want links to. There's no purpose for that link other than you want the link. So the citation requires that you're adding something that's specific or city specific, that's a data point, ideally that's your own, and that is that fits in a placement that should be there. Okay, so we are almost done, guys, and this is honestly going a little faster than I thought. Okay, citable elements, they have to empower and or inform the publisher's audience. So this is crucial, and this is a piece that I feel like it's really easy to skip over. But if you're adding a bit of text to your landing page or a data point to your landing page, but whatever you've added to that city-specific landing page really has to contribute to how the reader would do something or achieve a specific goal, or contribute to the decision-making process. Okay, so super abstract. I'm trying to think of a good concrete example. Maybe like best times, if you had a restaurant page, a page with restaurants, and you knew when the best time of the week to go to the restaurants was, like when they were the least busy, or when you really wouldn't need a reservation. And you knew that somehow programmatically from your so I don't know who you are as a business, but if you have a data point like that, you got a big long, it's like a Yelp kind of thing. You got a big long list of restaurants, and you know that they usually are starting to require reservations at a certain time, like across all of them. Now you can say on a placement, and if you really want to have a great night out on the town, we're going back to that Go Visit Louisville blog that we saw earlier in the SERPs and didn't visit the site, but go to louisville.com, I think it was, and you're writing a night out guide or a visitor's guide to seeing the town. Well, now you can tell them that if you don't have reservations, you're going to have to get to these if you want to eat at any given restaurant, you need to get there around 6 p.m. or 6:30, for example. And you're trying to have some element. So and then you would put that information on your list of Louisville restaurants. It would be a data point or a call out that the site visitor could see. Maybe it's closer to the bottom because it messes with your conversion flow on that page. But now we've got and then we would include a jump link down to that particular section so that the site visitor would be able to see this cited data element on this publisher's page. So what we've empowered is the reader to make a great decision about when they leave for dinner, right? To go try and eat at some fancy local restaurant. So they also have to support what we call an easy yes title for the publisher. And this is a way of saying you can't just serve yourself. And I mean, I know we're all marketers here and we know that, but just a reminder, how can this title serve the publisher's goals as you perceive them. So if it's at yoga studio, it's how do we make or how do we promote yoga as a choice for exercise, or how do we make yoga seem accessible or a good thing to try? And then also, you know, kind of again, create that justification, a citable element justification in the article also. So this is where the complexity arises from, really, is to know what citable element to add to a page, you have to kind of get a sense of what publisher you're targeting. And before you can do that, you've got to go out and look and see who's actually out there, and you're not going to know what their conversion rates are going to be like. You just are hopeful. But anyways, then also your citable elements have to demonstrate a brand attribute. What do I mean by that? Ideally, you're not just putting elements like when the city was founded, or, you know, facts about the city that are like Wikipedia type thing on that particular page. That you could do that, I guess, but it doesn't really push your brand forward as having any kind of expertise. So if I had a restaurant website that helped people make reservations, and I showed the times of the week when you probably wouldn't need a reservation, or the best times of the day, of any given day, that you wouldn't need a reservation, well, that helps exhibit my capacity at understanding reservations in that particular location. Now, you know, you could argue, well, that's not going to help us get more reservations, but, you know, by sharing the best time of the week where you don't need a reservation. So I don't quite know how to address that, but I would still say that would be a highly linkable or citable element, or citable kind of data point, and that brands your capacity to understand reservations in that city, or the kind of the reservation space, if you will. So, and then of course you have to be able to add content to your pages, to your the pages you want links on. This isn't always possible. It's crazy how frequently it isn't possible. But ideally, you're able to add a citable element to your local landing page. If you're not, it's not the end of the world, but you do have to kind of adjust your, adjust how you would cite that resource. So let's go back to that dining, you know, the reservations provider that has a list of local restaurants, and I can make a reservation on their site from that kind of marketplace of restaurants. We could just call it that in a guest placement. This is you know, if you're new to the city, this is a great place to go. But that is honestly would probably be fine. You don't have to get as involved as having a citable data element on the page. But that citable element gives you, I feel like it gives you more authority in the actual content itself, because you've got a more like actionable detail for that reader. And so maybe it's just me, and I do make things more difficult than they need to be a lot of times. So you could probably figure out a way to not have to add, and we are called to by clients from time to time, and we've found ways, or typically able to find ways forward. But so best, you know, ideally though, you are able to control your page and add some citable element that's data driven by your own custom data. And I know it's not everybody, and this is why, you know, I said that this is a presentation more for like in-house teams and that sort of thing. But again, it doesn't have to be quite this elaborate to work. But and then also the citable elements really need to serve your own visitors, your own site visitors. Or else they're just going to stand out or not fit or not really matter to the page. And you want them to matter. You want your visitors to see this section of the page and get even more convinced about how awesome you are, or how much you know, or how much the brand knows about whatever service space that may be out there. Okay, that probably should have been its own webinar with, but this is this siteability or what I did the link building the sales pages. That's what I was referring to as some of the previous work I've done. But this is just if you need to hear more walkthroughs on that. Still, it's pretty abstract, but I've got a webinar on building links to sales pages. You just search that in YouTube, and it should come up. So these are the kind of the rules for citability on your promoted pages that we strive for. So they have to empower the reader, the actual audience on the publisher's site, ideally, to either do something better or make a stronger decision or a more effective decision where the outcome they desire is more likely to happen, such as I want to go eat dinner. And that outcome is improved if I go to places that usually don't need a reservation before 6:30 on a Tuesday night. And so that's how you'd be seeking or striving to empower the visitor. And that's whether they're on your site or on, offsite or in a placement. So they need to fit, the citable elements need to fit in an easy yes title. So the title is what you're pitching to the publisher. Hey, I can write you something on this. And so that to make that fit can sometimes be tricky. And then also this is where you're lining up the publisher's needs, which are audience attraction and don't send business away, and in some way make me look good or in some form or fashion. Then they ideally are demonstrating a brand attribute, like something material about your brand or something specific that you're great at, that your site is great at, or that you're known for. They ideally, again, are added to the page. So if you can't change any of your pages, then you're back to the drawing board, sort of. And then it ideally serves your visitors too. It's not just kind of thrown in there or tacked on. And you don't want a visitor scratching their head over this citable element. It needs to really be kind of a seamless, ideally a seamless flow of coherence, I guess, so that it just doesn't stand out or feel awkward on that particular page. Now, these are some concepts I brainstormed. Some I've brainstormed previously, but we're just like, no, this isn't going to work, or this is just way too elaborate. But these are more for if you're kind of like a local service business or local whoever you might be, and you don't have you're not trying to drive leads across 10 major cities or however many cities you're trying to impact visibility for, and you're really able to do a little bit more of kind of that local connector kind of function. I don't know quite who this would be or who these could make sense for, but some of this is important though for some of the thinking you have to do. So I still like group interviews. I know they get pooped on by most of the SEO elite. They're still not most, and whatever, but they're not like kind of a go-to hot thing. And like infographics are kind of cooling off a little bit, but they're still freaking useful. It's whatever tactic is kind of waning. It's often a great time to start poking around and figuring out how to use it. But I still like group interviews. So this is where you're kind of cross-pollinating from one publisher type to another, or one service type of business to another. But if you found that there were lots of electricians with blogs in your space, maybe you go to all of them and ask for what are the most common issues to look for in a home in this area. If you're buying a new home, the most common electrical issues to look for. And then you would try to cross-place that maybe on a realtor site Though here's the thing, realtors don't want to publish things to look for that make you not want to buy a home. Like they just don't. They're trying to, so it probably wouldn't fit. But anyhow, the key here is adjacent, publisher adjacent. And so where the audiences kind of merge or combine. There's some other brainstorms. I thought it through more in the article. So if you're really eager to dig in on any of these, go check out the article. It's on the ZipSprout site. Couponer savings roundups. So this is kind of interesting. If you know of any, or you can email a bunch of I don't know what kinds of businesses normally have coupons. The email, maybe the car dealers, the auto mechanics, oftentimes have coupons. You're kind of doing a coupon roundup. Now, who the heck would publish that? I don't know. That's not a great idea. But anyhow, if you can, I probably should just go read the article and tell you what I know. I thought of a good one, but I can't remember it now. So sorry. Upcoming events is actually kind of interesting. So the yoga studios, or if you were going out to them and you had a handful of events that you knew of that were coming up, that you perceive their audience, wellness events, bliss building, happiness, acupuncture stuff, just whatever coming up, like that starts to become, I think, a compelling pitch type or content type. Again, I've never done it. I don't know. They might say no way. I'm not trying to send people away from my location, But the thing is, try it. These are just ideas. I don't know. I like the mover and shaker types, or if you can identify like local investors or people who are kind of have slight legends built up around them locally. These folks could be interesting to either spotlight, or if maybe there is some highly respected yoga practitioner 20 years ago who started the whole, maybe it's 40 years ago. I don't know, whoever started yoga in that city, if you or try to bring it and introduce it, like a spotlight on that person, whether it's an interview or just some historical research, like something like that would probably play well with a, kind of that yoga studio audience. And all of these here are really not designed with a citable element in mind. These are just more, how could you generate some kind of publishing opportunity on a local blog and probably get a homepage link is what you'd be doing here. And this is why I think of it more for, local practitioners or local single or, a few location businesses. And then, local hotspots are actually kind of interesting. Anything new that would appeal to that particular audience. I think I had, there was something I thought of for auto mechanic. I should have read it before. Go check out the article. It's got a lot more brainstorming in there. But again, all of these are just like maybes. We've never executed around any of these. And so you're on your own here. I don't know what results will look like. I don't know how much time it will take, but a lot of this is, your ideas for this will come from that initial kind of dip into what exists locally. You could also do that same kind of prospecting. Prospecting without a service qualifier baked into it. And if you did prospected broadly, go 20 deep, go 50 deep with no service provider type in there, and then look and see what the kind of the most common publishers are, and then think about how do we cross-pollinate these adjacent business types who are both using content marketing to try and reach an audience. So that's where the interview concept really kind of comes into play. I've done that. We've done group interview stuff before, and I've done it for many moons ago when I worked with Ontelo. We did that kind of effort. And so it's worked well for me in the past. And I have a hunch it can work at the local level, especially if it's a known brand or a business that's well liked locally. I think it would feel more like a grassroots trying to shine some light onto great people, as opposed to, hey, I'm just trying to get a link out of this. But anyhow, this is my kind of attempt to breathe a little more life into how you could be engaging with publishers at the local level. So I hope that this particular section you found fruitful. Folks, I mean, that's it. It's it because I don't have any more slides. And that was all I intended to talk through today. I guess I could recap everything, just real high level. Go back here to kind of what we went through today. So we've covered really the two key local publisher realities. The first one is actually, I believe, a broader reality, which is that about 1% of publishers are ad supported and 99% are visibility supported, meaning really only a very small fraction of blogs or rather websites that you see and you're kind of trying to get visibility on are ad supported. And so it doesn't mean they don't have editors or that they don't have editorial standards, but it just means that there's a different kind of drumbeat in terms of how publishing happens. Not all the time. I mean, there's in-house publishing teams that are just as tight and well-oiled as any ad-supported business. But anyhow, just that's a key difference we see in the publisher types is that some are ad-supported and the rest are visibility supported. And if you're only looking for the ad-supported people or the higher domain authority people, the higher visibility, higher reach people, you need to have a very different approach than what we talked about in this webinar. And I don't know what that approach is. So then, the other piece is just topically, you don't know, you got to make what's there work and figure out how can we make what exists actually work instead of trying to go the opposite direction with let's find all the mommy bloggers. And well, I didn't even talk about them in this webinar. They're usually the first thing they ask for is money. That's fine. That's why they're publishing. But typically the value to the requested amount of money are not well lined up. And that's because there's only a handful of, typically only a handful of local publishers. And they know that. So anyways, you're asking, how do we make these local, what exists actually work for the campaign? Yep, what we do is we're going to batch audience types together, or like kind of service types. CPAs, there's usually a lot of in any given city. Financial advisors also often have blogs and use content marketing. We've seen a handful, like on the medical side, like these are just tougher to get into, but always have been. The dentists are tough. I don't even know if we've ever gotten a placement on a dentist site, to be honest. So there's just going to be some that you're going to have some, we're going to really be uphill with, but you're batching, you're thinking about audience or how related are these services and are they kind of after the same types of people? And then you're trying to come up with that title. And I think the slide that best kind of captures all the things you're trying to do is on that citable element slide. It's way pretty far ahead, but just really thinking through all the facets of what's at stake in this effort, or who you have to please in this effort, or who you have to get approval from, or all the different things you have to serve in order to make this successful and in order to justify your effort. And so we touch on a little bit of that here, but it will come down to your title, or what is the title you're pitching, and then making sure that title fits the audience, that actual target audience, and then also in some way can serve the publisher, and then also has a city specific element in it, and has a justifiable circumstance in which you can cite either your client or your own site, so that there's a link, so you get that link out of it, and that visibility, that has that brand visibility. So it's there's a lot of pieces there for sure, and I, probably should have done like a graphic to kind of show that, but just use your imaginations. It'll be better than the one I would have made. So yeah, again, the first thing you want to do is just get a sense of what exists locally. Just a quick tip, checking out what's there. And then, this is some examples of what queries I ran. I ran through a few queries. Then roughly speaking, you need about 10 times as many publishers as you want to get placements if you're calling them to ask if you can write an article for them, which is kind of weird, on the face of it, but has much better results than emailing. About 25 times more if you're emailing. And then you can go deep after you kind of have a better sense of what direction you might be going. I talk about adding the service business modifier in at this stage. You don't have to yet. You could also just, if you really wanted to get a sense of broadly what types of organizations are publishing at the local level, you should leave off the service business modifiers for a larger, scrape, and then you could layer that back in further on the service business modifier. I like going 20 deep for the past year, and then this was the citability for your promoted page concept, which is just making sure that the link that you want to get is justifiable to all of these kinds of stakeholders, right? Like that the data point or the cited element makes it easier for the audience to make a choice, or helps them better reach the outcome that they're trying to achieve. And some kind of data point that'll help them along that path to completing their task or having a nice time, or whatever the kind of goal might be. Then it still has to fit in a title. Like this has to fit in the title. And the title has to be something that the publisher will say yes to, or would say, yes, please do write that article for me and send it to me. Then ideally it represents some kind of brand attribute that is important to your company, something you're good at and want to market. And then, of course, they have to fit on your page. So, and not stand out and not feel like they were just tacked on to be a citable element. That's not ideal. It's possible, it's doable, but it's not ideal. Yeah, and then this part, honestly, it's just me making stuff up. You're going to have to experiment on your own. If you do any of this type of stuff, or you have done any of this type of stuff and can share examples or case studies, would love to hear about them. Would absolutely link to it from our newsletter. Would absolutely publish a guest placement on something like that if you've done any of this sort of thing at the local level. Would be very curious to hear about it. Well, folks, I think that wraps us. This is has been a webinar on local link building, local blog engagement for links and kind of brand visibility. And it's another kind of potentially scalable method alongside sponsorships. It's not easy. And it's, there's a lot of restrictions there, as we discussed, and it's definitely not as easy as sponsorships in many, many ways, but it's a viable potential way forward, and one you should consider. All right, folks, thank you so much. I'm going to see about turning this thing off. Get one more look at my grotto here on my camera. Yes, that's me. Let's see. Stop broadcast. Folks, thank you so much. And, you know, appreciate it if you made it all the way through. And I don't know what we're going to do in the next webinar, but I'm sure it'll be just as awesome. And I look forward to it. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day.